Now you have a space you can
leave it. Yeah, do it. Yeah, you fucking jack off right here. That's the very first thing on the recording too. No, I can have this set up so it's easier to like manage doing this more frequently.
Nice. Love it. Yeah, what happened last time? I can't remember. It just like didn't.
I think your service on your something fucked up, and then you just rejoined, and then for some reason that fucked the whole thing up, and that was on like some third-party app, Podcastle. And so I opened it again. I was like, "Fuck you! I'm going with Google, and we'll see if that fucking checks out."
We'll fucking find out, bro.
Are you pre-workouting right now, dude?
I didn't eat breakfast because sometimes I hate eating breakfast, and so I'm having a Huel and protein shake. I have all of my emotional support drinks right here.
What is the third one you showed?
Okay, we got water. We have LaCroix. We have coffee, and then we have our Huel protein.
That checks out.
It's called health, George.
It's called health. Read about it.
Listen
about it.
End of podcast.
We're about to fucking talk about health. I've got my support beverages.
Nice. Coffee, water.
Coffee.
Simple, boring.
Yeah, boring.
Not as exciting as mine, but it's fine.
No, yeah, exactly. Jesus. Tight, dude.
Is the lighting good in my man cave?
I mean, your hair looks amazing. I'm just gonna say that right now. We are in very cave-like environments.
This is my room. It's a cave.
Yeah,
I'm underground.
I'm in the grandma's house of the house that I live at now.
Nice. It looks cute.
Yeah, there's a grandma house here. There's no bathroom anymore.
Oh, does that mean like it's separate from the other house? Like it's like a alternate dwelling unit?
Exactly. ADU.
That's amazing. Dude, it's amazing.
Yeah. And they do all their recordings and shit in here. Like all that sound fucking equipment.
Whoa. Are
they're all DJs.
Oh hell yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
Dude, are you gonna learn how to DJ?
Maybe.
I cannot see that as a hobby of yours.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have the I mean, I don't
rhythm. I don't have the rhythm.
I don't know if you have the brain to create music. Maybe. I don't know. Do you think?
I think I'm in a vessel of experiencing music, and I'm not a vessel of making music. Yeah,
I love that. Some people got to be the experiencers. Some people got to be the creators. Man, we can't all do it.
We can't all be everything. Okay,
that's fair. You got to know your strengths.
Exactly. But yeah, the ADU here, and then the climbing gym is like 20 paces that way.
It looks sick. That climbing gym is awesome.
It is amazing, to be honest.
Yeah, it's huge. I would get so
overtrained.
Burn myself out of there.
Yeah. Also something we could probably go back to too. Yeah, I could see it easily happening. But I've been regulating more so metrically at least than just subjectively fucking winging it.
Yeah. I mean, our collective history has been a bit of overtraining and notoriously pushing too hard. So,
yeah.
Speaking of, I'm fucking dying right now. I'm so sore. Anyway.
Oh yeah, dude. My lower body hasn't been fucking unsore for like 6 weeks. But we'll get to that shit. Not even from training.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's just over fatigue. Like I haven't been using my lower body to like a strength training mechanic or even like any sort of maintenance.
Right.
And over like 2 months now of just fucking pad peopling, I think just it wrecked my lower body in a sense that like it's fatigued, but I need to like maintenance it out of me.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like my knee injury happened.
Probably, yeah.
Because I wasn't maintaining my lower body and I was just fucking schmanging.
Yeah, and your strength levels were probably just slowly dwindling. Yeah.
Totally. And because there's so much connective tissue and shit that the strength does. You know, like bone density, fucking the tightness of the ligament
health. Yeah.
But
weird. Gotta have those maintenance days, bro.
I know. And now you got to learn the old-fashioned way.
Mm-hmm. By getting fucking hurt.
Where do you want to start this? Do you have the little sheet that's attached to the meeting? Or do you just want to wing it?
Where would I can pull up on, at least on my phone,
yeah, go to the calendar if you have your email calendar.
Oh, is it linked on the calendar?
Yeah.
Oh, Mountain Talk Notes. Perfect. Oh, sick. Oh, wow. Those are. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't even know this. Oh, my God. So
yeah.
Damn. Nice, dude. I did not know that.
Also,
existed.
if you're looking at that, I only put those 2 principles of strength training in there just for like my own ideas as well. If you're like talking, I've realized now overhearing, because like I live with a person who just always listens to podcasts, Huberman or God knows what.
Yeah.
I was like, man, Alex and I know a shitload. Like there's nothing in this that I don't already know to some degree or another, and I've incorporated it. And so I was just going to go with those first 3 components. Like, what are the lifts?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we can definitely
like I basically just want to hear how you go about strength training. Like what are the key components, whatever. And those were just some that people had put in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I know progressive overload, or whatever term you want to use for that, the intensity, the volume. You can talk about rep counts, whatever the fuck.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to just start with that, it looks like your notes are pretty intensive. Like there's a ton in here on creatine.
Oh yeah, that is just for me to randomly at the end just summarize.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
that was like 2 hours of my just copy and paste brain going to town.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we can just start with strength training if you want. Like, just cover some basics. I feel like we're both pretty versed in that realm, that we can give some solid advice, at least for people who don't know anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, applications of principles. Perfect. Past George was looking out for future George here.
There you go. You got to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Tight. Well, let's just talk about our recent quests. Talk to me about like stone lifting. Yeah. That's been a huge diversion for me away from climbing. I haven't climbed in since like June, so it's been however like 7-8 months now. Been the longest break away from climbing that I think I've ever had, which I mean, so basically every year I was alternating between strength training and then climbing training. So like ramping up to climbing season, I would just try to maintain all the strength I had built and then focus specifically on climbing. And then when climbing season was ending, I would switch that, maintain my climbing abilities, and then really focus on strength training. So it was like this alternating thing where like I was seeing progress, but it wasn't like really noticeable progress. So I decided this year that I'm just going to hyper focus on the strength side of things and take a little break from climbing and just see what happens. Like see if I can make some really big gains in strength and size. And so far it's been awesome to just have that one thing to focus on and not worry about the fatigue that comes from climbing and trying to be rested for it. I can really just like go in and grind and kick my ass. And so stone lifting's been a huge part of that, because it's just a strength sport, and it's not as technical, obviously, as climbing. There is like a lot of skill work involved, more so than I originally thought, but it's mostly just grit and raw strength, and you just have to build that foundation. And now when you were talking about stone lifting yourself, you started stone lifting like legit stones out in Utah and Uintas or whatever, and then you also pick up like Atlas stones as well. Are
Yep.
there other types of stone? Are those like the primary lifts, I should say, of the stone lifter?
Yeah. Well, I guess it kind of depends. If you're like a strongman, if you're kind of going to that type of realm, they mainly do Atlas stones. There are some events that use natural stones. I'm more psyched on the natural stone side. That's kind of like the more traditional, very like cross-cultural, very ancient practice is like all natural stones. The Atlas stones were actually created in like the 70s or 80s, and they were based on these really spherical stones in Scotland. And so they made Atlas stones, and that just became like a training tool, and then it became its own thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Atlas stones are super fun. They're really different than natural stones. They're quite hard, but they're a really fun training tool. But yeah, when I went to Scotland in June of 2023, that's what really sparked the fire under me, just like being actually in the element and like one of the places in the world that's like known for stone lifting, and then going and picking up these stones that have been used for like centuries.
For sure.
Was just like so I mean, yeah, it's like going and climbing a route that was done in like the 1800s. You're like, this is insane that people this long ago did that, you know.
And there's none of the technological barriers in the sense that, like, you know, you could have been an ancient hominid and they probably were just like fucking picking up shit.
That was the weights they had, you know.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's pretty wild. Like the more we discover about the history of it, like there are documented lifting stones in like the Inuit peoples, China, Tibet, Korea, Japan, Ireland, Scotland, a lot of Scandinavian countries, Iceland. Like it's Tahitian islands. Like it's just because that was the weight you had to use, and so there was this practice created around it, and a lot of times it was very ritualistic. Like it was used in wedding ceremonies, or in Ireland, like funeral marches would have certain places they would stop, and like it was like it was just a little more ritualistic. And so I really enjoy the lore behind it. It makes it so much cooler, and just the fact that it's such a niche, weird strength hobby. Like not many people do it. So there's something in my brain really likes the fact that I'm like
strength training.
Yeah, I'm like, people don't do this shit. This is cool. And so then meeting people that do it and are psyched on it, it's like very bonding, and yeah, it's super cool. But yeah, it's been a good diversion.
What do you feel like, besides like the cultural and aspects of it, like what of the actual activity draws you to it? Because I made an anecdote with a friend who is a really well climber. I've been climbing with them a lot recently, but the amount of like regime that I have, like the strictness of certain things that I feel like I need to do to feel on the wall powerful, like strong, powerful, like what that feels like to be in my body to feel strong is something that I also seek. And I wasn't sure if like this tangent of your like fitness journey was also like that feeling, because you can't really feel less strong than picking up like a 300 and whatever pound fucking stone. Right. I don't know.
Right.
That was just something I personally thought, and looking at like your transition through June to now, and you're like lifting huge things. I'm like, you could break me in half, man. I was like, it just aligned with me, and I was like, man, I want to feel strong, and I wonder if that's what he feels.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's like, I really do. I have loved like deadlifting and squatting heavy for the last few years, but this is something where you can, it's just like barbells and shit are meant to be lifted, and these stones are not. There's a great quote by a guy that's just like, stones are defiant. Like they are not really designed to be picked up. Like they're smooth. So it's fucking hard, and like you really have to try as hard as you can, and it doesn't feel good. It's not like a pleasurable experience, really. Like, dude, the way you just, especially to get a stone on your shoulder, like chesting is one thing, but to put a 300-pound stone on your shoulder, like you have to extend your back so much, and then all of as much power as you can derive through your lower body to just like hump this thing up your chest and digging into your chest, and then you get it into your shoulder. It's giving me fucking cauliflower ear because it's just jammed into your head, and then it's like 300 pounds on your shoulder, and then you put it down. You're like that's literally the whole deal. Is just like, oh, I can put this fucking thing on my shoulder, and it's so cool. And most people don't get it, and that's great. And I'm like, I don't care. It's fucking fun to me.
I mean, most people don't get lots of things like this as well. It's like the things that you were talking about just then. It's like I was in the Buttermilks 2 days ago, and there was a dude who was just like, I fucking hate bouldering. He was like, I'm sorry. I fucking hate bouldering. And a part of me was like, I understand. Like, the experience can be not that good. You're not making moves. The holds are heinous and painful. Some of the contortion positions that you're full flexing on. The experience necessarily isn't enjoyable, which is hilarious. It's a funny note.
The similarities are pretty wild, and I think that's why I enjoy it so much. It's very similar to bouldering in that it's just all out effort, trying as hard as you can, keeping that tension. Like you have to sometimes just like keep the tension, know how to like explode through the tension. It's painful. It sucks. It's short, it's like, it's very similar to bouldering, and it's full body, like just trying as hard as you can. And it's like bouldering, it gets you fucking strong. It's awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of getting you fucking strong, there's a lot of ways that we use strong and strength. I think the more I've been listening to it and looking about it, we probably use strength in like 3 or 4 different ways when we say it as just the same word without like putting a lot of context to that. And I think we have to like get into the nitty gritty if we're going to talk about actual strength training or what strength actually is. But I would say generally when we're talking about training, strength is the epitome of the amount of mass that you can move. And that's not under time load. That's like full out what your body's limit is, regardless of speed.
Right. Totally. Yeah. The speed's not really a factor in the.
It's not really a factor, but lots of people, when they say I'm trying to get strong, they'll do activities that are building power.
Right. They mean powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Power and strength can be used synonymously in a sense, but also if we are talking about certain things, and throughout this conversation, I kind of want to like find those lines if we can between if we're talking about strength, power, muscular endurance, or other attributes of like the getting stronger mode.
Well, I mean, what people don't, I think maybe don't realize, especially people that are training for climbing who don't really know a lot about strength training in general, is like, if you want to get more powerful, it's a really good idea to increase your strength first so that you actually have more capacity to be powerful. Because otherwise your cup is like this big and you're trying to make that cup more powerful. When instead, if you did like a 6 to 8 week block of getting stronger, your cup's bigger, therefore you can become more powerful.
Totally. What so talk to me about that process of building the container or strength in general. Like are we doing with that 6 to 8 week, let's just talk about like building capacity before we talk about a strength build. Are we talking about like building hypertrophy, like increasing muscular mass, like the amount of mass there? Are we talking about power? Because there's also like, let's say I prescribe like 8 to 10 reps per set, 2 sets of like most compound lift, like a couple compound lifts, right? And in the beginning, for me, it's not only building quote unquote strength, but it's also just building the container via power, fitness, lots of other aspects. to prepare the bodies for like what's to come?
Yeah, I mean, so if we just take, like, let's just have an example. Like, we're gonna start a program for somebody who's a climber who wants a baseline of strength, who wants to and has never done strength training before. Yeah, I would start them out with at least like the first couple weeks or maybe 4 weeks, something more along the lines of building that capacity. And so what that would look like is just slightly higher reps and a little bit less intensity than what I would do in a strength phase. Totally. So we would start off a little, because I like to take a little more conservative of an approach to training new people, because the newbie gains, like you're gonna have crazy gains if you're consistent, pretty much no matter what you do, if you're like consistent with it and you're a beginner. It's totally fucking awesome. And beginners get so psyched when they're like, holy shit, my numbers are just going up. And I'm like, enjoy it, because it caps off. And then it's a very small uphill. But yeah, I would be more, along the lines, like you said, like, 7 to 10 to 12 rep range. The intensity, like the RPE, which we can talk about. The RPE would be, in like 7, 8 instead of more like 9. And yeah, and then just like easing them into it. And then I would be like, okay, you've done this for like 4 weeks. Your mind's ready. Your body's probably ready. Let's do an actual strength phase. We up the intensity, drop the rep range down, and really have them like learn how to work hard.
Yeah. And not only that too, it's like, it seems like for me, the first like 4 weeks, even 8 weeks, depending on what their background is, you're also discovering what their weaknesses are. They're building capacity in other ways. And so the higher rep ranges allow for that as well. Range of motion, even like mobility issues and things like that.
Totally.
That makes sense. It seems like it's like a catch-all for like, you might get hypertrophy. You probably will in certain exercises because the rep count is higher. There's a lot of fatigue, rebuilding of the muscle and things like that.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about, let's say we're going into a build phase. We just talked about this. You mentioned it a little bit. We're going to lower the rep count, right? We're going to increase the intensity. And there's ways to measure that intensity, right? I think from a strength training perspective, a lot of people would be familiar with like % of 1 rep max.
Right.
Like, that is a measure of intensity.
Right. Not a very like accurate or like it's not very usable. It's like
I would agree in the sense that like I understand what maybe my 3 rep max is, which is something like 80%, 70, something up there. But have I done a 1 rep max? No.
Right.
Not
and most people
don't.
Right. And I don't even do that. I don't do 1 rep maxes with clients unless their goal is to directly increase their 1 rep max, because just shooting for increasing your 1 rep max is not the best way to get stronger. The best way to get stronger is to work in around 70 to 80% of your 1 rep max, and that will get you stronger. But like I rarely ever test even my 1 rep max. But yeah, maybe this would be a good caveat to talk about like RPE and that being a better way of judging. So you already know this, but people might not know. RPE means rate of perceived exertion. It's the best way, in my opinion, and a ton of coaches and exercise scientists' opinions, the best way to gauge what level to be working at, what intensity level. So if you took a scale, 1 to 10, that's your RPE scale. So an RPE 10 would be, let's just use, for example, we're going to do a squat, and we're going to do however many reps. Doesn't matter how the rep range doesn't matter when we're talking about RPE. So an RPE 10 would be, you are going to absolute failure. Like you do however many squats, and your last squat, you cannot stand up and you fail. So an RPE 9, dialing it back 1, would be, you stop 1 rep short of failure. So you leave 1 rep in the tank. RPE 8, 2 reps left in the tank. RPE 7, 3 reps. It's just the scale is really easy to use once you understand it. So doesn't matter what rep range you're using. If you're doing, if you're, say your rep range is you're going to do 6 squats at whatever weight at an RPE 9, that means that you get to your 6th squat, you're like, okay, I could do one more, but an RPE 9 is what was prescribed. I'm going to stop. I hope that was a good way to describe it.
Yeah. Honestly, I've actually haven't heard of the RPE used in a rep count range.
Mm-hmm.
I've only used RPE in like subjective exertion in, say, an aerobic activity. And that's much more of like, you know, a percentile of effort, but that's also super subjective.
Right.
But it's rough enough and close enough to what we want to have happen in an aerobic activity. And I think even so in a strength training activity, if you're like, I want you to go in and do whatever bench press, let's just say, or let's say pull-ups. I want you to do pull-ups at your 70% of your effort. If you think 100% of your effort would be, I mean, I guess I am converting it in the strength training to a rep count, because in my head, I'm like, oh, 70%. If I can do 10, maybe I'll do like 7. So I am doing it in my head. I just didn't think of it actually as being able to count out on the reps like that, which is pretty fly. Like 70% is a pretty good amount of work on RPE of lifts, and you still have a lot in the tank.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, that also, I think working at RPE 7 or 8 is fine for strength training. I mean, that's what the current science shows us, is like, it might not feel crazy hard to a lot of people. And so we have the tendency to be like, oh, I don't feel it. I need to push harder. I don't feel fatigued. I don't feel super worked or sore. But based on, you know, decades of research, that builds strength just as well as going to like an RPE of 9. And so if you can do a little bit less and be less fatigued and be able to come back to your next training session with more energy and better recovered, then it's like, why not? But like, I get chasing soreness. I love to feel worked and feel sore. So like,
yeah, but it's a pitfall.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, it is a pitfall though. Like almost everything that we look at, no matter what we're talking about in a fitness, the return on investment of going too hard is almost always not the best thing to do. Like you should almost always dial it back so you can go back the next day.
Unless we are talking about trying to directly gain weight or gain muscle on like an isolation lift. So
we're talking about hypertrophy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. Yeah. No. So like, if people don't know, a compound lift would be something like a deadlift, a squat, where like you're using pretty much your entire body to do this lift. An isolation lift would be like a bicep curl, where you're trying to isolate one certain muscle to really focus on that muscle. So with compound lifts, if you're going to go into the gym and do that, those you probably don't want to take those super close to failure, because the level of fatigue and the fact that it's really it's taxing to your neurological system to go to fatigue on a compound lift. Also, the chance for injury is a bit higher if you take a compound lift, it's like an RPE of 10. So probably don't do that. But like isolation lifts, if you're doing like tricep push downs, if you're doing bicep curls, if you're doing seated leg extensions, and you're just like trying to actually build some mass and like increase the size of a certain part of your body, dude, I kick my ass on that stuff. I will take that to failure every session, because there's a potential for that being slightly more hypertrophic. Yeah.
That makes sense. And that means that in a sense that you're trying to build more muscle mass in the specific region where you're doing the isolated lift.
Exactly. Yeah. So just take bicep curls, for example. If you're like, man, it would be cool to like for my biceps to be a little bit bigger. Doing isolation sets and exercises and taking that all the way to failure for multiple sets and doing that multiple times a week. And if you're eating enough, your biceps are probably gonna get bigger. Yeah.
I mean, okay, so here's a good kind of the path of two roads that kind of split for me. if I think from like a general training perspective, like strength training, aesthetic bodybuilding, that sort of thing, I can definitely see the hypertrophy of isolated lifts being much more appropriate and used more often. And when I think of the climbing, I don't see it as applicable for most people. At least I don't see them gaining as much benefit from doing those types of exercises unless it's hyper specific to something, like maybe the forearms because of the fingers, like muscular endurance. But like I don't even see the fact of like doing, I don't know, hamstring curl or something with the leg to increase the hamstring mass. I would almost say that it seems like a compound lift would be more appropriate for a climber at a higher intensity to just use what mass that they already have and train it to try, one, to flip the switch, and then two, to just maintain the amount of mass. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree, but also I kind of agree. I don't think it would hurt. I think climbers, and this has been talked about too a lot recently, you know, people like Natasha Barnes bringing this to light, is like our obsession in climbing with like our body weight to strength ratio, and like, oh my God, if I put on 5 more pounds, I'm definitely going to feel that on the wall. But like, if you're putting on a little bit of muscle, let's say you put on 5 pounds, that muscle is getting used on the wall while you're climbing.
Totally.
So I don't think that climbers need to do like, you know, 2 months out of the year of like bodybuilding specific exercises, but I don't think it would necessarily hurt for most climbers to have a little bit more muscle mass, because if you have more muscle mass, you're going to have more strength and you're going to have more power if you have, you know, trained smart.
Yeah. No, but I think contextually, like that, my example was very specific. Like I think probably most people would probably benefit, climbers as a whole, for doing 2 months of general strength training every year and building mass in lots of different areas. But I think I was using the context of maybe someone a little bit more specific, like you have all the necessary ingredients to do the things.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I would say like the upper echelon, like you're climbing, you know, you know, harder than 513, or like, you know, you're up there.
Right. Then they would probably benefit from doing some, you know, maybe specific hamstring strengthening exercises. But yeah, I probably wouldn't if for some reason they came to me to coach them, which I don't know why somebody at that level would come to me, but who knows? Then yeah, I would just be like, you should probably go to Tyler Nelson or do some hamstring strengthening exercises, because it couldn't hurt. You know, the amount of we're heel hooking, and like how often do we actually train the hamstrings and the posterior chain to do the you know, like handle those really high loads and like pull with your heel when it's above your shoulder? Like that shit's
honestly, I've been running into this issue. I mean, I tweaked my LCL recently, like, and I think it was because I didn't maintain a maintenance phase or like a strength to my lower body. I kind of just focused on climbing. And so the benefits of having some sort of strength exercises, and I mean that at like a higher intensity, you know, what we were talking about just a second ago, to maintain like bone density, your ligament tendon elasticity, and just like your amount of your muscles to be able to recruit those things. But like heel hooks and things like that are so specific. What I've been learning on the rehab process is like, when I really want to generate with my lower body, the engagement, the range can be from, you know, full standing, but all the way to like groin with the heel and the toe. And it's really hard to replicate that off the wall.
right.
And I've started to play with things like just adding like doing a box step up to my groin and like putting weight on and standing up through that to like try to replicate that thing, or get like on my back and load my heel at varying degrees.
Right.
Try to like PT at one but also like thinking about that in the future context. Like, how do I want this not to happen again?
Right.
I need to maintain a way to generate power and strength through my lower body. And it could be just a generic lift, like squat.
That's what I was gonna say. Is I think a trap we tend to get into is like we have a specific thing with, say, climbing that we want to get better at. We try to make the training for that so specific to the movement when that's not really as necessary as I think people think it is. Like if you like I think for doing stuff like crazy hard heel hooks, if you just went in and did like leg curls, where you like laying prone on a machine and like curling weight with your heel, if you somehow had access to a machine like that, like that's probably going to be the best thing you can do for strengthening your hamstrings and all those tendons and muscles back there, and helping prevent injury in the future.
Total. I mean, it's progressively overloadable. Like, yeah, things like that. I think right now it's just the infrastructure. It's like that's one thing that not a lot of people have.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I
have a great fucking gym back there. Yeah. I have almost everything, but like trying to figure out those lower body things, I'm like, how can I
Nordic curls?
Yeah, Nordic curls. Not right now. My LCL.
I don't do those. Those are fucking.
Oh hard. Yeah, for people who don't know, that was one thing that I should have put in a little bit earlier before I tweak my LCL. But yeah, Nordic curls are a hamstring, very intense on the hamstrings. You're definitely going to start with like elastic bands or some boxes or something to keep you from going down too fast.
Google it. You'll see you immediately be like, holy shit, that's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. So for somebody who was going to design a build phase of general strength, what would you say, like rep counts, lifts? I mean, I was under the impression recently now from some of this research that if we're just talking about like a general build phase of like strength, muscle, capacity, those sorts of things, honestly, it doesn't really matter what you're doing as long as you pick like, let's say like a push exercise, a pull exercise, like a compound lift. So we're talking like, pick deadlift or squat, pick like bench press, pick like whatever, and do whatever, five sets of 5 reps, 3 sets of 5 reps, something like that. RPE of 70%. And then just go to town.
Yeah. I mean, well, so there's a reason that squat, bench, and deadlift are the big 3 lifts, is because they're so efficient in hitting the entire body. And so that's, normally what's prescribed for people. And I know some people are like, oh my God, it's like same things. And I'm like, well, there's a reason these lifts are so widespread and there's so many studies that have been done with them, and like they're super effective. So I mean, it also kind of depends on the person's individual goals and their
always, yeah.
But yeah, if we're being super general with it, like, yeah, I would be like definitely like deadlift, squat, bench press, and then I'd probably throw in something like rows. For climbers, I think personally we tend to hyper focus on pulling movements that are straight down, like pull-ups and stuff. And I think from doing rows, like heavy rows, that has helped me so much in climbing, because I mean, it definitely changes what part of your lat and your shoulder is used depending on the angle of your arm. But I think doing heavy rows has been one of the most helpful upper body exercises for me personally.
Also, I also agree on the rows. And also, I mean, just think about it from a sports specificity perspective. Like if you're on dead vert pull-ups, like a lot of times maybe your hands are over your head, but like, the steeper it gets, the more the bent over rows or single rows with the dumbbell, I think is more appropriate. Because for me, on the bent over rows, if we're just talking about a random tangent here, having enough weight for my upper body on an Olympic bar with both hands is so much that it fucks my back up.
Yeah.
Whereas I can just grab a single dumbbell and use a bench and get way more specific with the exercise and overload easier.
Totally.
And it's like that was kind of a ceiling that happened quite quick. I was like, man, if I was going to do this like at the Olympic bar, proper whatever technique standing, the limit is like my form and skeletal and range of motion and stuff, and that's not what I want to focus on right now, because I'm more interested. I got to choose my battles. Like I
honestly don't really like barbell, bent over barbell row. It's also, if your back is already fatigued from doing like a deadlift or a squat or something, you're just kind of layering on more fatigue. When for me, I would, like you said, I would just like to focus on my back and my pulling. So I do like a chest supported row where I'll do a bench incline and I'll lay my chest on it and then do really heavy dumbbell rows. And dude, those absolutely rip. And if like if you're trying that and your grip is the first thing giving out, use straps. The exercise is not necessarily to work on your forearms. I mean, that's not a bad thing to do, to work on your forearms, but the purpose of this exercise is to work on your back. So if you use straps and hold into the dumbbell, you can really just like fatigue the back and go to failure, which this is an exercise I think you could definitely go to like a range of motion failure where you literally can't move the weight.
Yeah, I mean, it's more specific. That makes a lot of sense to me too. You're building mass there, and then later you're going to learn to recruit that mass on the wall.
I think a lot of people could benefit from heavy rows instead of like weighted pull-ups, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, definitely depends on when we get down to the nitty-gritty in that, it definitely depends on the person. Right. Like I've seen lots of progress from weighted pull-ups, and it depends on like what range you're climbing, male versus female, usual like biological tendencies is like testosterone and muscle building in the upper body versus like strong fingers or good being able to open the hips.
Totally.
Like, total differences.
I just think that like climbers, when we're climbing, we're getting so much stimulus from pulling straight down that to then layer on and train that outside of climbing, it's just like you're just hyper focusing on this one pulling thing where and again, this is there's probably haven't been studies done on this, or maybe there have that I'm not aware of, but I just think doing a different type of pulling exercise is probably more beneficial than just doing like,
only if they have the capacity to do pull-ups.
Right. Yeah. If you can't do it,
like lots of people can't do pull-ups. Climbing, and it's like if you can't. I mean, I don't want to say like what, but like I do feel like you should be able to do like 10 pull-ups, like body weight.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, there's some people that climb well that can't do that, which is crazy. Like especially like smaller females, like. Dude, some of them can't do 3 pull-ups.
Yeah, I was about to say 3 pull-ups. Yeah, 3 pull-ups is probably a good metric to be able to do. Though.
Totally, but I mean, they're like crushing somehow and still can't do 3 pull-ups. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like, okay, so this is not as
powerful,
not as crazy of a metric as we think. It's like pull-ups.
No, true. Yeah, absolutely, and that comes down to how specific climbing is. Is like hypermobility, strong fingers. Body positioning, like all of that can get you really, really high into grades and be a relatively not strong.
Yeah.
Or the adverse. Like I could be able to do a 1-arm pull-up and I might not be able to climb V5 because of all the other things.
Right. It's such a high skill-based sport.
Yeah. And so really nailing down, obviously, like where you need to go before you just start like questing into the unknown of the training sphere is kind of nice.
Oh yeah. We did kind of divert from the training thing, but yeah, like we were saying, squat, bench, deadlift. There's a reason to like pick those big compound lifts because they're efficient, and then doing I mean, I would say anywhere from 5 to 10 reps, doing at least 3 sets per exercise. And then doing that like twice a week is probably like a good minimum. And like you can have, I would have like we were saying, squat, bench, deadlift, and then a pull-up or row. And then if you have extra energy or time or capacity, you're not going to get too fatigued, you can throw in some accessory work. If you feel like, you know, your arms are skinny and you could benefit from more strength and a little more size in your arms, like you can do
Bicep
curl variation,
overhead press. Yeah.
Or if you have problems like mantling, like the push part of mantling, and you feel like your triceps are small, you could do like a tricep push down.
Yeah.
If you feel like your squeezing power is not there, like doing some chest work at the end is great. And like we were saying, like you can push those accessory isolated lifts to failure. Like you'll probably see more benefit taking those all the way to failure. The hard part about, you know, layering in strength training with climbing is that, like, I literally just talked to a client yesterday about this, how he was like, why can't he was like, I want to get better at climbing. I want to get stronger. I want to up my aerobic endurance. I want to get more mobile. And I was like, okay. I love that you want to get better at all these, but you can't, like, you're not going to be able to do that. You gotta prioritize. So right now, what's most important? Exactly. Okay, climbing is most important. I was like, okay, cool. We're gonna focus on the climbing, and we're gonna do 1 day a week of strength maintenance, and then maybe sometime in the spring or something, or whenever you're ready to swap that, we can really focus on the strength side, and we can just maintain the climbing side.
Yeah,
because you just can't. Like you'll make the most minimal progress if you try to do everything at once. So you got to prioritize.
Yeah, I mean that's a good little segue. Is like how would you regulate? And I think in my mind I feel, and let's talk about first strength training, and then the overlay that all of us are doing all the time is like I want to climb really hard. You know, I want to be mobile. All those things as well. But definitely, if it's 2 days a week, I've always thought like 48 hours between those sessions at a minimum, between 7 days.
Yeah.
And then are there other forms of, like, that's a scheduled training perspective, right? You're kind of just saying, I need 2 exercises every 7 days separated by more than 48 hours. Great. Are there other ways that you know of people regulating that?
What do you mean regulating it?
So we did like frequency.
I mean, like I do. I mean, I think it depends on your experience level and your fitness level. Also, your you know, outside of fitness, like what your stress is like with your work and family and mental health.
Good point.
And then what your just overall schedule is like. Like for me, I'm really lucky with where I'm at with work right now. Is I can you know, my gym sessions can be 3.5 to 4 hours, which is fucking awesome. But I only do it like, you know, 2 times a week, and I just go in and kick my ass for that amount of time. But I can spend that much time and really rest between sets and like get the most out of it. Most people aren't going to be able to do that. Most people are going to have, you know, an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Yeah.
So you really got to like whittle down to like what is most important, what's the highest priority. And you know, you can do splits too if it's something where, like, you know, maybe you have 6 exercises in your program that you really want to do, but you're like, damn, I don't have time. I only have an hour. Like, I don't have time to do that multiple times a week. So you could do a split where you would do, say, like a more pull focused day on Monday, and then a more push focused day on Wednesday, back to a pull day later in the week, and then you just kind of alternate.
Yeah.
As long as you're hitting each muscle group or each exercise at least twice in like a 7-day period.
Yeah. And being rested before the set. Like you're not hitting them back to back.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise that. Yeah, I mean, if you can go back to back, then you're not going hard enough. Your RPE is at a 5 and you think it's at an 8.
Yeah.
You're not going hard enough. If you're not a little bit sore or a little bit fatigued the next day, I would say you should probably, and I mean, figuring out your RPE is a whole nother thing. Like, I think you know, we covered that very briefly, but without having a coach there, to actually watch you. Figuring out your RPE can be hard. So the best way to do that is to take an exercise to failure, so you know what RPE 10 is. And if you're, I mean,
give me an example, like a bench press. I'm getting on bench.
So, okay, always use the safety bars, especially with squatting too. Okay,
Right.
if you're going to go to the gym, use the safety bars, because especially if you're working at like an RP 8 to 9, or if you're testing your RPE, you don't want to fail and crumple and have that bar laying on your back. Like you could hurt yourself. So just like be safe, use all the safety precautions. And if you don't know how to set that stuff up, like reach out to me or George. We'll have to figure it out. But yeah, so I would, if you're gonna do bench press and you're like, okay, I don't know what an RPE 10 is like, I would, put on whatever weight you think it. So let's say I'm like, okay, you're gonna do a 7 rep bench press. We kind of have an idea based on what you've done a few times of what like an RP, you're like in an RP 8 right now. So let's take that same weight that you're using for that and then just keep going. So you would do like, let's say you do like 7 reps and you're like, okay, this is usually where I stop because this is what I think an RP.
Oh, I see.
RP 8 is. And then you do another one and you're like, oh shit, okay. And then you do another one and then you do another one. And then your last one, and you're like, okay, I actually did. So I actually did 11 reps instead of 7 reps. So you can kind of use that to calculate where, let's say, okay,
that makes sense.
Yeah. So you can be like, okay, well, I thought I was in an RP 8. I thought I only had 2 reps left in the tank, but I actually had 4.
Yeah.
To complete failure. So instead of you thought you were at an RP 8, you were at an RP 6 actually. So then you can be like, oh fuck, okay, I should put on a little more weight for my next set because I'm still trying to stay at the 7 rep range because that's whatever was prescribed in my plan. So then you just put on a little bit more weight, and now you have a better understanding of what the RP scale is. But if you don't really do that and you don't push to failure, you're probably undershooting. With almost every single client I work with, you undershoot your RPE. You can do more than you think you can do, but
that makes sense.
Your body naturally
try and protect it. Yeah,
exactly. It wants to protect itself, but that's why we create a safe container of the training space so that we can really push it.
I mean, that goes in also I'm just I would say when I prescribe, we do a lot of uphill work, aerobic activity. So like when we're prescribing a build or a capacity work phase, there's so many different exercises that the first week it's like body weight. And so there's they're just getting an idea of what the lifts and exercises and things feel like. So it's going to take even with the strength phase, if I picked 6 exercises and I'm bench, squat, whatever, I haven't done Olympic lifts in so long besides bench that I am almost starting from scratch. Yeah. It's probably going to take me 2 sessions just to start to figure out what even my RPE 7 is before I even push it to see what it actually is. It's
going to take 2 sessions to just feel good doing a bench press.
Yeah, exactly.
Years, it feels so awkward.
And this is how I think people don't understand that 6 to 8 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, that shit happens fast. Yeah. When you think about an 8-week training block, some people are like, oh my God, that's so long. But you're spending 3 weeks getting into the groove. Right. You know what I mean? And then you're only and you have rest in there.
So well, you think about if you're doing 2 sessions a week, that's 16 total sessions if we're going to say an 8-week period. And your first 4 sessions might feel like you're a newborn calf figuring out how to walk. So then you're like, okay, 12 sessions, it goes by quick. It really does.
And that's one thing that just shows the carryover to other sports that are that'll happen. You know what I mean? If you feel like a newborn calf doing a squat, it's going to feel pretty good in 6 weeks when you're getting on to a boulder problem and you're trying to do a pistol squat out of it. You're like, oh, I've been in these positions before.
Totally. And I mean, that's kind of the whole point, is just to make your body and your overall fitness level smarter and stronger, so that when you put yourself in those really weird positions, you don't have to think about it. Your body is just capable and strong, and you're just fucking do it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Strength training is so sick. Literally, even just like doing random things. Like I had to move our washing machine broke in our house, and so I don't know if anybody's ever lifted a washing machine. They are so fucking heavy, and so this was like 9 a.m. I'm with this other guy who's our electrician friend, and he's a big dude. He's like a amateur power lifter, and both of us had to muscle this thing out of a tiny stairway and down the stairs and around a corner. And I did that completely cold. Like I had just woken up, and he was like, we got to get this thing out of here. Like it's garbage. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And just after doing that, being like, I actually feel fine. Like I didn't need this extensive warm up. I just off the couch, literally got out of bed and helped lift like, a 300+ awkward washing machine. I was like, damn, strength training is cool.
No, absolutely. And I think that carries over to a lot of different things as well. It's like, I mean, being able to like hold on to whatever edge, like, I mean, I understand like a micro edge or something like that, but being able to like go do, a one arm pull up, if you have the ability to do it, it's like, you're probably not going to, I want to be able to not have to warm up. Like, I want to just be able to walk up and be able to do those things because it's so easy. It's so like, I've done it so much.
Right. That
like,
it's just ingrained. Yeah.
And I listened to the Tyler Nelson Nugget podcast, which was bitchin' for anybody who is interested.
He's a G.
It was like,
oh boy.
What do you say? Lions don't go jogging.
Dude, yes.
It's like you don't see a lion out there jogging in the savannah, dude. They're just going to take down the fucking gazelle.
I was just about to be like, let's talk about the ridiculous amount of warm-ups that most climbers do. And like, especially for strength training, dude. Okay, I go into the gym, I walk on a treadmill for 5 minutes, then I go to whatever my first exercise is, which is usually a squat. I will do a couple progressive warm-ups with the squat, and then boom, right.
What do you say, like, for me on a progressive lift like that, what do you say, like, your percentile of 1 rep or your RPE, the first like 3, or you're like, let's go.
The first one's probably at like 50% of what you're going to be working at.
Yeah, but that's still
like your max or whatever. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's like
considerable for sure. Like, especially if you're on squat, like,
sure. Like
you're not walking up there and just putting like the bar.
I mean, like some people, it depends on like, if your max is like for a squat is like 135 pounds. So like,
that's still
on each side, you can probably do a couple with the bar and then put 25s on. And then, but I mean, my squat's, decently high. So, well, not really, but it's all right. So I'll just start with like a 45s on each side. And like, that's my squat warm up, and it feels light, but it's enough that I'm like getting used to the movement and my muscles are kind of like waking up. And then I'll do another little bit. Like I'll do half of what I normally could do. And then I'll do like 75% and then right into that set. And like, I never don't feel warm.
And I think that's because probably the history of capacity, like you're done it, it's familiar, things like that. I'm not saying like if this is your first time ever strength training, you're probably not going to be doing that.
Right.
But
you don't have to
like week 5 or 4.
Yeah. You don't need like a 30-minute extensive warm-ups with little exercise bands, warming up your shoulders and stuff. Like it's just not worth your time, especially if you only have like an hour and a half. Dude, don't sit there with a band and warm up your rotator cuffs to do a bench press. Just do a couple bench presses. That shit will be warm. And then bench press.
Yeah, I mean, same thing for me is like I walk into the gym now, and if I'm doing like my warm up to climb, it's like I'll just hang on the 10 millimeter, right? I mean, I'm not like, that's not that small, 10 millimeters, but like it's not like I'm warming my fingers up to hang on it, and that's like more strain than any rock climb is going to give me. And then you're good to go. Like it's like, sure, I'm going to warm up to like micro crimping my full body weight, but barely.
Perfect. Tyler knows what he's talking about. Shout out. That's my boy. We went to a metal show recently. It was awesome. He was at when I went and saw
the hate that he's got from the campus rungs comment.
Dude.
Great.
It's so funny.
It's so
he's ahead of the game, and people are gonna realize in like 5 years and be like,
decade, yeah.
I really dogged on this guy, and he's like has science to back all this up. Crazy. That's so crazy how you could do that.
Yeah, for those who haven't listened to that, but essentially what happened was Tyler's new hypothesis, I guess, would be that campus rungs are kind of like an arbitrary tool that don't do the things that we think they do, and they're just making us fatigued and more injured. Yeah. And to go on a strength and power back to the beginning conversation is like power, which is something that they've been researching, like RFD. It's like rate of force development, like how quickly can you generate X amount of percentage of your force over time, right? Is something that is becoming pretty prevalent in a requirement or skill for climbers. Like not all of them, but it's like a pretty good correlate to be like, if you have a high rate of force development, then that's going to translate good onto a wall or a small edge, right? Yeah. And so I've been incorporating like things like on my warm up is like 3 to 5 power pull-ups, right? Just because I want to maintain that velocity, like unweighted, just like 3 or 5 if I'm feeling good in a row, the fastest that I can pull myself up onto the bar and as high as I can go. Like I'm trying to hit my face into the ceiling. Just to generate power on the muscles that I have. And so that's one thing that people will want to understand when they're talking about the lifts or what exercises they're training, like what are you actually training? And what we're talking about right now is strength. Obviously you're going to gain power because of lifts and things like that, but the more specific you're going to get into an exercise or training, especially for climbing, it's like you really want to know what sphere of this you're trying to improve, and if the thing that you're doing is actually going to improve that.
Yeah. And it's pretty, I don't think it's as complicated as people make it. Like strength is, if you're going and doing a strength session, your lifts are probably going to be relatively slow. Like you're not going to be making them slow. It's just the load is so high, or should be, that you're moving pretty slow, and each rep is getting just a little bit slower. And that last, if you're an RPE 8, your last set might be, your last rep might be like decently slow.
Like not even moving.
Or not even moving. And then you might have gone too far into RPE. But then, for power, it's like drop the weight and move it quickly.
Yeah. Or you like for body weight for climbers, for sure. Like if you can move your body weight quickly, that's going to be paramount.
Yeah.
Let's see. What other things do we want to cover? We've talked about strength. Is there anything that you can think of that has been lingering or that we completely missed?
On the strength side of things, I don't think so. I mean, it's really, there is a lot of information out there, I feel like, for people, but there's almost too much information. Yeah. Like if you go online and try to research this shit, like you are going to find some of the dumbest information I have ever heard. And then you're going to find some like nuggets of truth. And it's really hard to differentiate between those two. So what I would suggest for people is to, if it makes sense for you financially, hire a coach, even just somebody who can help with the programming. Like it doesn't have to be an in-person coach. Like I do a lot of in-person work, but I know, you also work pretty remotely with people like building plans. I do that with people around the country too. If you can do that, that's going to go so far for you, because then that kind of takes the guesswork out of it, especially if you're unsure of like, okay, well, how many sets should I do? What order should I do these in? How long should I do it? What's my rest like? Blah, blah, blah. You can hire somebody to do that.
Yeah. It's very, very inexpensively as well. Yeah. I mean, a couple things though. It's like, we obviously, it's like, you're going to pick some lifts. You're going to do them 2 times a week. You're going to have some sort of progressive overload, some way to either increase the intensity by increasing the weight, or some way to both measure and increase the intensity for yourself over time, until you hit some point at which you're stalling or like flattening.
Yeah.
And then the coaches are there to like prescribe certain lifts, you know what I mean? Or like to give you, if you have no idea and you're just questing in the dark, that is definitely something to do. But if you have a general idea of what you want to be doing, it's not that complicated, like you're saying.
I mean, I feel like the majority of what I do with clients is showing them how to progressively overload, convincing them that they're ready to progress, to actually put more weight on or do more reps, and then just motivating them to get there and to be present while they're there and to enjoy the process. But I think we should probably touch on progressive overload for a second. Just I feel like that's a word that some people don't really, or it's a term that people don't really understand. But like you said, progressive overload is just this idea that over time with a certain exercise, so let's say you put 100 pounds on your bench, you're bench pressing 100 pounds. The way your body works is you are going to get really used to doing 100 pounds. So you're going to be able to do, let's say you're doing 100 pounds and you're doing 7 reps in 3 sets, and you're doing that twice a week. And that's pretty hard at first. That's going to get easier because your body's going to get better at doing that. But you're not going to see the same gains if you just stick with that 100-pound bench press. You're not going to have any gains after a certain point because your body's so used to it. So you have to progressively overload the weight or the rep count. So generally what I would say for most people is the only time you should up the weight is if you can up the rep count first. So if you have a prescribed rep count of 7 at an RPE of 8, this is going to be a lot of numbers. Hopefully people can are holding on here. So,
but ideally what you're saying is that you're prescribing 7 reps, but in their mind, they're stopping 1 rep before. Their mind, they're going for 8, but they're stopping at 7.
Well, yes. So like, let's just say you have a prescribed rep count of 7, and an RPE 8. So I want you to leave 2 reps left in the tank with an RPE 8. And you do 7 for a couple weeks, but then you're like, you get to your 7th, say one session, you get to 7 and you're like, oh, this doesn't really feel like an RPE 8 anymore. Maybe I'll do 1 more. Oh, that feels like an RPE 8. So you've increased the rep count. If you do that for all of your sets, then I'd be like, okay, now it's time to put on 5 more pounds for your next session. And then you'll probably, again, you'll reach your 7th rep and you'll be like, ooh, okay, now with this additional weight on here, that feels like an RPE of 8. And you just continuously do that. So if you can up the rep count by keep the same RPE level, then you're like, throw some more weight on. And that's how you just progressively overload. And that's how you see gains in your exercises.
That makes sense. Yeah. Totally.
Oh yeah.
What would you tell someone? Okay, this is classic. I get this question all the time, and I know we'll re-land on the subject, but what should people eat?
Oh man, just like in general, what should people eat?
I don't know. Like I want to lose weight a lot, which I think is a very baggage statement. Like there's a lot of things packaged inside of that.
Right. There's nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight.
No, not at all. But also it's like
psychology, you know.
Yeah. Do you want to lose weight, or do you want to lose fat? You know what I mean? Like the weight isn't necessarily the idea. It's like you're going to build muscle and you might even weigh heavier. But
the weight is fucking arbitrary, and people need to get over the actual weight on the scale and start to think more about what they can do and how they feel in their bodies. And once you really get away from what the little number says on the scale, like who fucking cares? It's more important, like if you're really worried about losing fat, then pay attention to the body composition changes, the changes that happen in your body, and less what's happening on the scale, because the scale is going to fluctuate all the time. And like George said, it might go up if you start strength training because you're going to build some muscle. It might not move at all, and you might be building muscle and losing fat, but it's something that people need to just kind of like get over.
Get over it. Yeah.
Does that sound?
Like, is there anything that you like would you tell your clients like that they need to be doing nutrition wise as a general blanket? I mean, I do say that like you should probably be having a post-workout nutrition after your sessions.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I say, like, especially if they've never strength trained before.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give them like, take this the way, I mean, whatever your dietary restrictions, whatever way you can get caloric protein surplus and some carbs afterwards or before, doesn't really matter. But other than that, I really don't have much of a guideline unless they ask me directly.
Yeah, I mean, I try, because I'm not a nutritionist, I try not to give, unless they ask me, which most clients do. And so then I'm like, okay,
exactly.
Here's the caveat. I'm not a nutritionist, but I also nerd out about this stuff. So here's good blanket statements. I mean, if you're strength training and if you're trying to, one, maintain your current muscle mass, strength, size, or two, trying to up any of those, your protein intake, I'm just going to give a blanket statement. You're not getting enough protein. You're probably not intaking enough protein. The current science shows anywhere from 0.7 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight every day.
I've seen all the way from 0.7 to 1.7.
It's an absurd amount of protein. And so I don't usually prescribe that. I say, like, even for me, I weigh 200 pounds. So I should have to get 200 grams of protein per day. That is an insane amount of protein. I try to get more than 120. And I have still been able to, maintain muscle size, my strength, and even up some of that. So I think, yeah, you're probably not getting enough protein, but don't go too crazy about it. I think shooting for over 100 grams of protein per day is a pretty good blanket statement for the average sized human.
Yeah, I mean,
very broad, but like
that's why I say that basically like the post workout, or even people if they're really craving, is like one before bed. And I don't even prescribe grams, you know what I mean? Because that's just like a whole nother overlay that is like sometimes, unless you have a nutritionist, which this is why people should have nutritionists if they want to go that deep dive, is that like your calories are laid out, your macros are laid out. Like you can get super scientific with it if you want to, but it's a lot of mental energy. So it's like, I'm more focused on like, what's the simplest that I can tell somebody that they can incorporate in their life to increase their like wellness without like overloading everything at the same time. Same. And it's like, you're going to take, I mean, you have to track your own food before you even start changing anything, because you probably don't even know what you're doing. But like a simple statement, like you're not getting enough protein is great, because it's like people are going to eat more protein. Or like, I'm like, take post-workout nutrition, or take it after bed, or before bed, or both. And it's like, I'm just jumping really like 60 grams of protein. Like something like that.
Totally. And like that increase is crazy. If you have like even one protein shake, you can get 3 grams more protein. So good for athletes and people trying to gain. And I mean, I think another general blanket statement that I think is mostly true, especially for people new to training, is you're probably not eating enough food. You're probably not fueling your sessions well. The amount of clients I work with who show up to sessions and they haven't eaten breakfast yet, and I'm just like,
yeah.
Do you? But some people don't understand that. I don't know what it is. Your food is what fuels your body. So if you want to try hard and exert energy, you have to eat food for it to turn into. So like, I think fueling your sessions with like some. Dude, I'm on board with like Rice Club Shout out to Useful Coach and Natasha Barnes on Instagram.
What is a Rice Club? Wait.
That's like their pre-workout. They'd have like a handful of rice, and it's like
the Rice Club. Yeah.
Carbs, just like good carbs. So I try to get, some form of carbs before my workout. I do intra-session fueling, which just means like during your session having like simple carbs like gummy candies, or I use dextrose in my energy drinks that I make, which dextrose is just a simple carb that is just immediate energy to your muscle.
Honeys, dates.
It's great. Yeah, fruits are great. Yeah, totally. Anything that can be broken, like potatoes. Sometimes I'll like roast potatoes and go to the gym and be a crazy person eating potatoes. And then like immediately following, have some protein, have some carbs, because the carbs help you with your recovery. And then just, people, it's happened for decades now. People are scared of carbs and think carbs make you fat. And if you're not doing anything and you're just eating a bunch of pizza, but like, it's not that black and white. Carbs don't make you fat. Being lazy and not doing anything makes you fat.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think like the real mindset about nutrition for me, at least most of the time, is that like, don't eat like a piece of shit. One, like obviously, like
dirty molting like I am.
And then, but the 80-20 rule, I think, is the best rule ever. 80% of the time you're doing what you've intended to do.
Yeah.
Like I'm staying within my strict guidelines 80% of the time. 20% of the time, and let's be real, right now I'm at like more of a 70-30 rule where you don't care, and like I'm gonna eat my ramen, or I'm gonna have pizza one night this week, like whatever it is. But I think that the real approach is like, don't underdo your macronutrients regardless of where they are, because we can deal with that later.
Right.
Like you're gonna gain muscle. I don't want to underfeed my body or under nutrient my body during a part where I'm putting my body under more stress physically, because then I can always trim the fat later if that's something you really want to do aesthetically.
I would much rather overfeed for a new client or somebody trying to improve in any type of athletic endeavor. I would much rather overfeed than underfeed.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing a cut, you're trying to be an aesthetic bodybuilder, competitive bodybuilder, which fucking nobody listening to this probably is. You don't need to do a crazy cut and only drink lemon water like a psychopath. Like,
no, exactly.
You're not gonna perform well, bro.
Even the climber who will listen to this, that extra 2 to 3 pounds or whatever of whatever you're gaining is just you're just gonna have so much more power on the wall that's not even gonna matter.
It's not the 80s anymore, bro. We don't do that. We don't do that.
That shit anymore.
Skinny chic. We're,
Yeah. Not about caloric restriction.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty much as far as I go with nutrition, aside from like supplements, which I think we should touch on.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and I do. Yeah. Let me think for a second about that.
Actually, will you pause real quick? I'm gonna go pee so fast that I have to.
We're recording this whole fucking thing. I ain't pausing shit.
Oh shit. Okay, 1 second. Off the camera. Keep talking.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're right there. Nice.
No, I'm not. You can't see me.
No, but I can hear you perfectly. Timestamp.
Tell me more about nutrition, George.
You know what I really like supplementing with? My own urine.
Dude, it's great for your skin and your hair, and actually your eyes. If you like put little droplets into your eyes.
Yeah. Well, I don't have to worry about the hair thing right now, so we're good.
Also looking great with the bald head.
Yeah, straight fucking bald now.
Looking like Johnny Sins.
Ooh.
He's a porn star. All right, and we're back.
And we're back for our commercial break.
But yeah, you want to talk about supplements and what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, supplements, what we take or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of a weird pedantic thing, but like, so people don't consider whey supplementation. Sometimes I do consider it supplementation.
It's supplementing from your regular diet. So
yeah. So I always put whey on there. And I will say for the people who are vegan or like just, for some reason whey messes their stomach up or anything like that. One, you want a purer supplement. Like I just buy from bulksupplements.com now, just like straight up. It doesn't taste good, but I don't care because it's like the bare minimum.
It's so cheap. It's so inexpensive.
But yeah, a lot of the whey supplements out there, even like, and even more so, probably the plant ones are just like chocked full of shit. And so just make sure what you're buying is actually good stuff. I will say if you're doing plant only stuff, make sure there's some suggested evidence that you should have like a leucine is like a amino acid that will help that protein break down in your body, because the animal like whey and things like that have it naturally occurring because it's an essential amino acid. And so the ability to get the plant protein to your body can be less effective than an animal source because there's the essential amino acids already in the animal source protein. So the plant-based proteins have to have that sort of supplementation to be more effective.
Right. Well, I think if you just make sure it's a complete protein, like a lot of the plant-based protein blends that you get will have a pea and a rice or a quinoa, so they make sure that they're hitting all 9 essential amino acids mixing. I guess I haven't really looked into that. I feel like most, but like if you're just buying rice protein and that's you're missing multiple amino acids for it to be a complete protein. Luckily soy is a complete protein, quinoa is a complete protein. Like there are ways you can work around that.
So if you're going to like bulksupplements.com for your plant protein, just make sure you're mixing the right things together.
Yeah, totally. If you happen to have a store that has bulk items, like we have Winco out here, which is like a really cool discount co-op. I get bulk plant-based protein from them, and it's like a pea and rice blend. That's fine. I just can't do whey. That shit fucks my belly up. So I do like a pea and rice blend protein, and it's all right. I mix that with some like peanut butter protein, and just do whatever you want in the bulk section. Nobody cares. Mix some chocolate in there. Some cocoa powder, some cinnamon. Yeah, just do whatever you want. There are no rules.
Yeah, I mean, besides whey, I don't prescribe. I don't tell people to supplement with creatine, but I personally supplement with creatine. I supplement with a multivitamin as well. Yep.
Multivitamin gummies, they're the shit.
Or is there any other supplementation that you do?
Aside from creatine, I mean, I feel like creatine is something that most people are going to benefit from. There are decades and hundreds, if not thousands, of studies done on creatine. It is the safest, most effective supplement for muscle growth and size and strength and recovery gains that you could possibly take. It is so cheap. New research shows that it has potential, it can increase your brain health. And basically what it's doing is just giving your muscles a little, in a very simplified version, excess energy to your muscles. A very simplified version. It's more complicated than that, but that's the best way to think about it, is like your muscles have a little bit more energy than they normally would, because of the higher levels of creatine in your body, which creatine you get from like red meat and stuff. So this is an easy way. Instead of eating like 4 steaks a day, you can just supplement with creatine every day, and you have these higher levels of creatine in your blood. Your recovery is better. There are very minimal downsides. You may hold a couple pounds of body weight because it's like more water weight in your muscles. But like, who cares? Again, if you're looking at the scale and you're like, I'm 2 pounds more than I was me yesterday, then like get over it.
Yeah, I mean, aesthetically speaking, the water weight goes to the muscles.
Yeah, your muscles look more
so they look bigger. If you're talking about aesthetics,
totally. Some people get like bloated feelings, and some people just doesn't work with, and that's totally fine if it doesn't work for you. But I would say it's so inexpensive and so worth it to just try it that most people should probably just do it.
Yeah. I mean, like you said too, it's not that much more complicated from what I was like diving down into.
Right.
Creatine is stored as like a non-essential amino acid, phosphocreatine, but like it essentially helps the production of ATP, the source of energy in our bodies, intramuscularly and intraneurally. I don't know how you would say it, but in the brain as well. So it just helps the energy to be there faster and not have to go through the typical Krebs cycle of ATP production.
Nice. Krebs cycle.
I think it's the Krebs. I think that's how
you're right. Yeah, you're right.
That came out of fucking.
Just didn't expect you to pull
freshman. That came out of freshman year nutrition right there.
The Krebs cycle.
What's up, y'all? There's actually more clinical research on creatine from a food science perspective, or like clinical perspective, than there is from the strength side of things, which I just recently learned. For like Alzheimer's, things like neurodegenerative diseases.
Wow.
Because of the increased energy production in the brain, or just like the muscles are. It's like the most active brain or muscle in our body, I don't know if it's a muscle or not.
Long story short, just fucking take creatine, because there's like literally the smallest downside, and it is so inexpensive. Like I, again, buy from bulk supplements on Amazon. We don't want to support Daddy Bezos, but Amazon's great. Fuck it. So I think the creatine that I buy, like 2 pounds, is like $15, and that shit will last me months.
I think it's went up in price because people are realizing this. I think I got 1.1 pounds for like $14.
Okay, maybe that's more, but that shit lasts forever. You have to take it every day.
Yep.
You take about 5 grams every day, I think is about what I take. You don't have to do a loading phase with it, which you'll see some people do. Just take 5 grams every day, dissolve it in water, protein shake, whatever, and just stick with that forever.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about like size, people. Like if you're like 100, around 180 pounds supposedly or more, like that's probably a good metric for 5 grams.
Oh, you might not need as much if you're like less
weight. Yeah, if you're like 120 pounds, maybe you're more like in teaspoons. What is it? A teaspoon is like 2.5 grams or something, maybe 3 grams, right around there. So it's like 2 teaspoons would be over 5 grams probably. So I take like 1.5 teaspoons every day. I think most people will probably be fine with just a teaspoon, maybe 1.5 teaspoons, maybe 2 if you're as big as Alex.
Yeah.
There is some production. I can't remember what the molecule is or what they test for in the kidneys if you run blood tests. And you might come up they might red flag you for something like some kidney issues if you have excess of creatine in blood samples. So you have to tell if you're supplementing. Like if I went in right now and got my blood tested, they might be like, "Oh, your whatever levels are pretty high. You should probably get something." So there is like, as a caveat, some sort of deal with kidney.
But there's been no link to any
not even close. Yeah.
And it's the same with, there was a whole thing about protein, right? Remember when like 10 or 20 years ago or whenever, people were like, "Oh my God, excess protein like fucks up your kidneys."
Yeah.
That was completely debunked. There's
livers and kidneys are all the filtering mechanisms of the body. If you have excess of whatever, it's gonna be, some sort of flag. But I don't want to say that like there's absolutely nothing. It's like we don't know what happens, but so far from like,
dude, it's been studied for like 40 or 50 years that the studies have been going on with creatine. So I think it's safe to say it's like pretty fucking safe.
Yeah, I take it every day, like no questions asked.
Aside from creatine, what do you take in a multivitamin? Do you take anything else?
No, I don't at all. Examine.com though is sweet for anybody who's looking at this, because you can just type in whatever it is, like creatine, and see every research article ever made on it. Basically, it's kind of insane.
Nice. I've been recently playing with dextrose in my in like my pre-workout drinks that I make. So that's been something interesting. Just a little more on like the fueling side for workouts. Like I don't take dextrose every day, but like so I make my own energy drinks for a workout. So I'll take, you know, whatever juice or liquid I want. Usually like 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine. I'll do my creatine in there, and then I'll do I think it's 40 grams of however much dextrose comes out to, like it's like 40 to 60 grams of carbs.
I see.
Yeah, just for like that additional fueling for my session. And then I'll also put the dextrose in my post-workout shake so that I get the carbs to help with the recovery and help get the protein into my system more efficient.
That's smart supplementation right there. You're just making your own for cheaper.
Dude, yeah. If you're buying energy drinks every day, here's a little tip. You can also buy caffeine, just caffeine online.
Supplements.com?
No, NutriCost. But so bulk supplements I think has it in its pure powder form, but because caffeine is so easy to overdose on, I don't do that.
Nice.
I buy in a pill form, and so I know each pill has 100 milligrams.
There you go.
But then I'm not having to like really worry or stress about like, oh my god, is my heart going to explode? Did I accidentally put too much caffeine, like 700 milligrams? Instead, I'm just like, cool. Each one is 100, and I've had the same bottle of and it was $15, and I've had that bottle for like a year because I don't use it every day. I use it multiple times a week, but like it's lasted for so long.
I mean, that's a lie, I guess, too. If you're talking about that, like I supplement with caffeine intra workout, like, yeah, the same way.
Yeah. Caffeine is a hell of a drug.
And like back on your talk, and we're talking about nutrition and supplementation now, but like I've had some people run into some walls, like bonks and things like that, and not knowing that like if we're doing aerobic activities as well, it's like you're going to want 100 to 200 calories every hour. Nonstop.
You got to intra-session fuel for sure if you're doing long endurance.
Yeah. And even like our climbing session, you know, I'm out at the buttermilks for like 6 hours, 8 hours at a time. Dude. I'm taking probably that or more every hour.
Yeah. If you're not eating, if you're doing a climbing session and you haven't at least brought a snack,
get out of here.
Here's your fucking sign to start bringing some food, dude, because you're going to climb better and you're going to feel better. And it also gives you like something to look forward to. I like gummy candies. Like
they're all the rage out here too.
Gummy bears, gummy worms, and then having something a little more substantial, like half of a sandwich or like a piece of pizza or something that's like left over. Like that's shit's fire and so helpful.
I like fruit.
George's a big fruit guy.
I'm a fruity dude.
Big fruit guy. Look at his head shaped like.
I'm supplementing with that and spliffs.
There you go. Your other supplements.
Yeah, put that into the supplement category.
I think
if caffeine's in there,
I think that's about all I supplement with. I feel like I don't. I mean, there's so much other shit that's like trendy and like all the rage, but until
I think most of it is a lot of it is bullshit.
Oh, most of it is bullshit. Yeah. And like, okay, hot take.
If there's anything that you all want us to talk about later, please, like beta alanine or some other fucking.
I was just about to bring up beta alanine because, okay, hot take.
Yeah.
If you're spending $30 fucking or more on a little container of pre-workout, I'm probably going to judge you, because if you just look at what the actual effective ingredients are in the pre-workout, caffeine and beta alanine, most everything else in there is filler to make you think that it's doing more than it is, but when really those people are grifting you, they're taking your fucking money. You can make your own.
That's the same thing with the proteins. Like, just look at what's fucking in there.
And like, so like I was saying, I make my own pre-workout. I've tried beta alanine before as well. Some people really like that. I didn't notice any effect from it, or it was covered up by the effect I was getting from creatine. But when I stopped doing beta alanine, I didn't notice any difference. If I stop doing creatine, I do notice a difference. So I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna just do creatine.
And what difference have you noticed from taking creatine? Because I've also noticed something as well.
Yeah,
I take it.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've stopped taking it, but if I go on trips or something like where it's like a week long, I usually don't take creatine with me because like it's gonna stay in your system for a while, and it's just not worth it for me to like deal with that every day of like, okay, I need my little tub of creatine, I gotta take my creatine. So if it's a week or so, I'm just like, fuck it, I just don't take it. But
I take mine with me.
What'd you say?
I said I take mine with me.
Yeah, I'm not used to. Now I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
I notice that my physical limit is lowered a little bit. Like my ability to push myself while not on creatine is a little bit less. I do tend to drop a couple pounds in weight. When
you stop it. Yeah,
when I stop taking creatine. But like I haven't done it for an extensive period of time to really like document it. What do you notice when you stop?
I don't get pumped. Like on the wall. I get pumped, obviously. Like I'm a human.
When you take creatine or when you don't take it?
When I take it.
When you take it, you don't get as pumped. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because there's more water.
Yeah. And to go back to the creatine section, well, one, it's like you don't have to use the intramuscular in the general. I mean, this is obviously like, pretty toned down in the science perspective here, but I don't have to use what I normally would use for energy stores in my muscles.
Mm-hmm.
So first I use the creatine phosphate to help generate ATP production. And then when that runs out, I'm probably using more of what traditional muscular I would be using.
Right, glucose.
So I feel like I get pumped. It takes longer for me to get pumped.
Nice.
And I noticed that first, like obviously right when I started taking creatine, because I just didn't know what that felt like before. Now I couldn't be like, I bet if I stopped, I would know, but I haven't stopped since I've started.
Yeah, it's that good.
And the extra water, as long as you fuel with the extra water, like at the beginning, you'll notice you're like thirsty all the time. Or like you have to take more water when you take creatine, especially when you're starting to load it, because it's going to store more of that water in your body. But there's also some research stating that you can you're more hydrated. Like in long aerobic activities, because you're starting with more water.
It makes sense. Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. But that's the only thing for me is like pumped. I haven't noticed like thinking faster.
Yeah. I'm just as dumb as always.
Goddamn, brother.
If not dumber.
I have some questions. Questions time.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I guess we are pushing like 2 hours, aren't we? Wow.
I think we started a little late. So yeah, we're probably getting up there, at least an hour and a half.
Nice.
Strength versus sport-specific training days per week for an endurance athlete.
I think strength
versus sport-specific training days per week for an endurance athlete.
Well, what is their...
Yeah. This is very, very no context.
But what do they do?
I think if you're in a build or if you're in a training block in your training that you're trying to increase strength or building capacity or whatever, I would still say 2 strength workouts per day or per week, even for an endurance athlete. Now, if they're in a phase of their program which they're heading towards a performance phase, like they're heading towards their event, or if they're in a transition to more sport specific, then I'm probably going to take that down to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree.
And that depends too, obviously, if we're talking about general strength or very specific strength training. But I still do think that like a minimum of 1, even going to a performance phase, just for maintenance periods, would be appropriate.
And are they asking like, will you read the question one more time?
Strength versus sport specific training days per week for an endurance athlete.
So I guess it would be helpful to know what their athletic pursuit is, because their sport specific training. Do they mean?
I bet it's like, just based on context here, I bet it's an Ironman or something like that, where sport specific training, and I'm going to take it more generally too, even if they were a climber, there's going to be days in there where they're doing sport specific activities, i.e.
they're climbing. Does that
climbing,
mean
or they're biking? Like if they're an Ironman,
right,
they're doing biking, they're
specifically
swimming
for their endurance goal. Oh, okay,
exactly.
Yes, okay, you got it exactly. Then I didn't really understand the question, but you
No,
nailed it. You nailed it. 2 strength training sessions per week, up until like they're really starting to focus and ramp up toward whatever goal they have, then take it down to 1 and just maintain that. Yeah,
precisely. Yeah,
totally.
yeah. And I'd probably maybe even taper that 1, maybe 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before your event. Like, don't even do it 2 weeks before. If it's like an Ironman or some shit, I don't know. Like, probably not. Let's see.
Make it really chill.
This is not a question; it's a rant.
Okay.
Let's just say, what is your first thought after I read this to you? The polarization of our country is a side effect of our sudden addiction to technology and media. What do you say to
that? I mean, I don't think that's why we're polarized as a country. So I think maybe I disagree. It probably doesn't help.
This reminds me of the Subway. Have you watched those Subway reels? There's like a guy interviewing, and it's like a hot take, or he's like 100% agree. You're like 100% disagree.
Yeah, I'm like, it probably doesn't help, but like I don't think that's the source of why we are polarized as a nation. I think that goes way deeper, and that would require an entire podcast that I don't think we're ready to do.
Not yet.
Not yet. I like the prompt though. It's getting out there. It's good.
Here's another one that's just as random, and then we'll go to one that's more non-random. I want 100% agree, 100% disagree.
Okay.
The red/blue leaning neighbors, the red / or blue leaning neighbors you have are probably decent people.
Wait, I have to 100% agree or disagree? That's impossible. There's what do you mean by decent people?
I'm going to say probably agree. I'm going to say 100%.
I mean, I think I see. I mostly agree because I know people who are, the opposite on the political spectrum as me. But okay, decent people, yes. But if they also are like, I think immigrants should be shot, are they a decent person anymore? I don't fucking know. I think that's too black and white. I'm not going to 100% agree. I'm going to mostly agree and say, yeah, they're probably decent people on the surface. But if they think that a woman who is raped should have to carry her baby to term, and then they're not going to give that baby health care, you're not a decent person anymore. Sorry. I think you're kind of a piece of shit.
60% agree.
60% agree.
Okay. Re-ramping post time off for injury. So getting back into it after injury. A life event. Ooh, this is actually expanded. So re-ramping post time off for injury, life event, etc. Mm-hmm. How fast is too fast? Does too fast exist?
Too fast definitely exists.
Yeah, I would definitely 100% agree. Too fast exists.
But what is too fast? I mean, I don't know. I think, again, like I said earlier, taking a conservative approach. The only time in my life I take a conservative approach is with training. Slowly ramping back up into it. And I don't know, pay attention to your fatigue levels and like your pain levels. And I don't know. What do you think? Can you expand on that?
I would say like give yourself, I mean, just as a general rule, I'd probably give myself a 2-week buffer. Like no matter what you're getting back into, if it's like you've been out for a long time or you just had a breakup, serious relationship issue or something like that, like give yourself like a 2-week re-ramping zone, something like that. I mean, I just tweaked my LCL, so I couldn't even if I was laying on my left side in bed in the fetal position, and I tried to bring my right foot off of my left foot, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the first day I was like, oh my God, I can not even do it. And
Was this
like, I'm so fucked.
was this an acute injury? Like, did it happen and you were like, oh shit,
yeah,
something happened?
Yeah,
will you
tell us about it? Yeah. So there's a V8 Moonraker, and it's a cave problem in the buttermilks, and you're like matched T-Rex arms on some like good holds under a roof, like the steepest roof you can have. And then your right heel is on your right hand at the same time.
Ooh.
And your left foot is like on a good edge. And you do a right arm iron cross at full distance. And so you're heel hooking with your right, and you have your left hand on that same hold. And I'm iron crossing with my right arm straight out. And so I was shifting my body weight from my left and my heel onto the right arm. And as I was standing through the heel hook, it was like pop, pop, pop. And so that feeling inside your body where like you turn your muscle and your tendon like does like elastic through the bone. It felt like that in my shin, but it sounded like tearing, like pop, pop, pop. And so I instantly dropped, and I knew it was in my body. And they were like, oh my God, would you break a rock? Like we heard it scrape, like you scraped some rocks. And I was like, no, this was like in me. Oh. I just sat there for a second, like not wanting to stand up because I thought I just fucking blew something away, you know. There was no pain, nothing like that. It was just the sound.
Weird.
And so I got up and was like taking it easy. I sat down. There was like adrenaline dump because I was like, oh my God, I might just like tear my ACL or MCL or some shit. And no, I could walk on it. I took the pads out, hiked out. I knew I wasn't going to try the move again. And then that night when I was in bed, I tried to do the fetal position pull, and I was like, oh my God.
Like actual pain?
No pain. Kind of like a ghost limb where you're like trying to use the same pathway in your brain to move a part of your body, but it's not responding. You know, it's like feels like a ghost almost. Weird. And then, like, you know, the next day I could walk, but it was super painful. Well, not painful, but like the range of motion was reduced and stuff. And so I took 2 days of rest, and I got a PT look at it, like manually look at it and like palpate and twist my knee and stuff. And they were like, you're good to go, basically. I was like, do I need to like not climb for like, 3 weeks or something? And they were like, give it a week. But I'm much more conservative than they are because my body is protecting itself. I've learned now that it's like neurological rewiring. It's not necessarily like structurally. Like if there's no pain and palpation, there's no swelling, but my body is taking a while to like
trust it. And actually like
I'm not pushing past that. I'm waiting till my body is ready to say go for it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like half-assing everything else with the right leg at the moment. So it's pretty much good to go, but yeah, I definitely have to protect it in a sense. And so I think to this question, I think intuitive ramping is the best. I don't know how this is so hard for many people, but like even with my physical therapy with this, I'm just intuitively loading it. Like I'm loading in positions and trying to activate discomfort in a sense, like so I know that I'm getting the full benefit, but I'm not injuring it. In the same way, like I'm progressively loading harder and harder exercises, but not at an ability where I know I'm going to hurt myself.
Yeah, right.
So like, I think like an intuitive way to re-ramping is probably your best way. Just play with it, and you'll know when you're like ready to get back into the full swing of things. And if it doesn't feel right, then you're probably not ready.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't feel right and it still doesn't happen, you need to hire someone to keep you accountable, because then that's not the issue.
Right.
You know,
I mean, the good thing about most things like that is I don't want to just be like, it'll usually go away on its own, but like, dude, I had a nagging like PCL injury in my knee for almost a year, and it's completely gone now. But it was like a year that I was dealing with some weird pain.
I've dislocated my shoulder on a volume move in OCG one time, and that took like 7 months before I was like, I can iron cross again.
Right? Yeah. It just like takes time, and also, pain is just something we have to deal with as humans with bodies that can be hurt. And like, I mean, I have a nagging shoulder injury from goofing around and picking a girlfriend of mine up onto my shoulder, and it fucked my shoulder up.
Yeah.
And it's been like a month and a half now, and like I don't think it was even from stone lifting. I literally think it was from like 3 a.m. at a party, someone putting them on my shoulder.
Totally.
So it's just like you're gonna experience pain.
Yeah, you just got to really put yourself in a safer environment and where you can control the environment and increase it over time, like the loading, the intensity, or whatever it is. Because like I've worked with some people now, or have people around my orbits who injure themselves, like they have repeatedly injured themselves for some reason. This woman is now, because like she had just like a degenerative or like some sort of like genotypic expression of like loose joints, right? So she'd like dislocated one shoulder and a knee and stuff and hips, and now she like strength trains and had reconstructive surgery on the shoulders, and it's all like good because she's strength training and doing things to like prohibit that from happening. But there was like this mental barrier of people who injure themselves over and over again and then have a barrier to just even trying because they're gonna quote unquote re-injure themselves again.
Right. And they view their bodies as
and it's hard to push back past that, like put yourself out there because you think you're going to get hurt again, but you just got to start progressing yourself in a more controllable context.
Yeah,
you can kind of like a strength training over time.
The same thing with relationships too. Get your heart broken, what are you gonna do? Never fucking love anybody again? Shut up.
Get out of here. Get back in the game.
Just gently lead yourself back out there.
Yeah.
And get hurt
again. You're gonna be in a safe space, and then you'll hurt yourself again.
Go get your heart broken again. What is life without a little pain?
Yeah, Jesus. Okay, last thing.
Is the point. Anyway, yes, go ahead.
Last thing of the episode, now that we're 2 hours deep, what really matters? Final question.
Just in general? Or like with string training?
1-in-1.
Okay, with string training, what really matters, I think, is
I'll give you a couple sentences.
The consistency and the lifestyle change that comes with viewing strength training as not just a one-off pursuit, but as a lifelong pursuit and hobby, period.
Bam.
What about you for string training? Then we'll go back and forth.
What really matters? I would have followed you for sure on consistency. That's the first thing that came to my head. But since you nailed it with the best answer ever, I'm going to say consistency and play.
There you go.
Being able to progress and have fun with yourself in whatever the motion in the ocean actually is, or the programming. Give yourself that 20% leeway to just play with things.
Yeah, love that. I think to roll off of that, the most important thing in general is, yes, play, making everything playful. Because what else? Because like, what's the point if you don't do that? Have fun, passion about everything and people and your hobbies, no matter how weird or niche they are or painful. And be nice to people. Be kind.
Same as this, dude. Play, authenticity.
There you go.
Genuine authenticity.
Authenticity. Yes, yes.
Don't fake it. Don't fake yourself for other people, and ultimately don't fake yourself to yourself.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Until next time. And we out, bitches.
That was great.
Okay, let's see if I stop the recording. What happens?
Delete everything.